Hello, this is Chantal Cornelius at Appletree, and I'm joined today by the lovely Sarah Williams from the Book Consultancy. Is it the Book Consultancy or the Book Consultant, Sarah? I can never quite remember. Consultancy, there we go. And we are talking this afternoon about how to get books done, how to use books for promoting your business, because I'm a big fan of them. So, Sarah, you sent out some information to the people on the call, and we've got some questions that have come back. So do you want to start taking us through the first section of the questionnaire, and we'll see how we go from there?
Yes, I think that would be ideal. Thank you, Chantal. Fundamentally, just let me give you a little overview about what we're aiming to do in this part of the talk, is that I've identified what I've called 7 poisonous pitfalls to writing and publishing.
Yeah.
And these are the 7 sections that we're going to be going through, which will, these 7 parts we'll be going through, which I hope will give you, A, an insight into what the process is, and B, the ways to which it make it less painful and more successful, if not entirely pain-free, and utterly successful.
That sounds good.
So, Jane, I believe you filled in the first part of the questionnaire. Would it be okay if you shared what you wrote in with us?
Okay. Well, the first part was what my book will be or is on, and I've got 3 things down here. The first one is health and well-being.
Yep.
The second one is Reiki.
Right.
And the third one is equine Reiki.
Aha.
Mm.
So probably 3 books, not 1.
Indeed.
But I was just sort of giving myself a little brainstorm and see what sort of things I would be interested in writing about.
That's superb. So health and well-being is more for what would you say, more the sort of general health and well-being for adults book?
Yes. We've spoken before, Chantal and I, about sort of corporate type focus on this.
Yeah.
So really sort of giving people information about how they can look after their own well-being, possibly at work, and sort of areas around health and well-being generally. Right.
That's really good. Which of these do you think makes your heart race faster? Which are you most excited about writing?
At the moment, I think probably around the equine Reiki.
Yep. Brilliant. Okay, well, is it okay with you then if we focus on that for the next couple of questions?
Yeah, sure.
So what would you like that book to achieve for you?
Really, I'm thinking of sort of achieving more clients and more students, because I actually train people in equine Reiki.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the book could help me sort of get introductions to people who are perhaps interested in healing their own horses and having an interest in Reiki generally.
Excellent.
The other thing I think is that it also would help me to sort of be known as the go-to expert in this area.
Yes.
And the third thing is really about improving all my marketing efforts.
Yeah. Excellent. Great. Very clear.
Good.
Chantal, do chip in at any point, won't you?
I will do. I was going to say, obviously, the horse Reiki resonates with me, but this book isn't necessarily for me. But
well, it might be.
But I do agree about writing something that you're passionate about. If you've got 3 things that you want to write about, pick the one that you're most passionate about, because then it will be so much easier to actually do the writing.
Exactly. And also, if you're passionate about it, you're more likely to communicate that passion to your readers.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what would you like the book to provide your readers? You sort of touched on that a little bit, but...
I think the first thing really is probably the interest in the subject area.
Yep.
Because a lot of people, even though there's a lot of stuff out there talking about Reiki, when you say, actually, I give Reiki to horses, they sort of look at you quite blankly. So it would be quite useful to say, well, here's a book and have a look at this, and this will tell you something a bit more about Reiki.
Yeah.
Because I haven't got 3 hours to explain it all to you as I stand here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I think it's my interest, and also the helping yourself side of it. Because again, a lot of horse owners, and I'm sure Chantal will sort of agree with me here, that sometimes it's about you actually helping yourself before you can help your horse. In terms of people get very nervous about riding their horses, or their horses have issues. So from a holistic angle, it's very much about getting people interested in doing Reiki for themselves to actually make them better horse people, if that makes sense.
Yep, makes absolutely perfect sense, yes.
Okay.
And the third one?
Well, the other two things I've got really sort of passing on knowledge.
Yes.
And ultimately giving people skills that they can use themselves.
Right, yes. Excellent. So it would be, you see it as being pretty much a very, an explanatory book, and B, a book which would have very practical exercises.
Yeah.
Yep. Excellent. Great. Okie dokie. Now, if I just give a little overview of what these 7 pitfalls are, and you've got a sheet, as you've been so very efficient, presumably in front of you, that you can make notes on if you want to.
Yes. Okay.
Great. So there are 3 main sources of confusion, which are pretty much universal when people start to write a book. They have a sort of a general sense that they want to write a book. They may even have, as you have, a very clear idea about what they want to write and the kind of thing that they want the book to achieve. But generally, you don't know what you're going to write. So that's point 1. You don't know why you're writing it, and you don't know who you're writing it for. So
sounds fairly dangerous, really, to me.
Well, it is the universal position of everybody before they actually put pen to paper or finger to keyboard. And the process that we've found most effective to help people to actually get the clarity is to start with who you're writing it for. So you start with thinking about, well, who's your audience going to be? Who's your readership? And ideally, if you can actually have a particular reader or kind of reader in mind before you begin to write, then you'll find that how you express yourself will be much more effective and relaxed, because you're going to be speaking to a particular person that you've got in your head. So identify your audience, and then identify the why, the outcome that you want. So which you've done very, very clearly. You want to write an explanatory book which also provides people with the possibility of applying some equine Reiki themselves. And correct me if I say anything wrong at any point.
Okay.
And then that finally will lead on to what kind of book you're going to write. So, the choices of the kind of book you could write are pretty much endless. I mean, in the workbooks, white papers, how-to books, so on and so on and so on. So yours would be more of a how-to book with some background, if I understand it correctly. So that would be that's point 1, and that's so now you've got already quite a lot of clarity on what you want to do. As we proceed in the writing process, various things happen. So the first thing that happens is, okay, I know what I want to write, I know who I'm writing it for, I know why I want to write it. I have no idea where to start. So the 3 main areas of doubt are where to start, how to keep going, and when to stop. Where to start is actually, it's both quite simple and a skill. It's actually a question of just starting. I've, over a number of years, developed a particular system for creative planning, creative thinking, creative writing, which is called Flimsy Structures, but which in principle, in its starkest terms, is let your mind just bubble and spread over the paper. Don't tell it to go in one direction or another. Don't make lists. Don't dictate to it. Just see what your ideas are, and then from that you can actually begin to plan. The other thing that it's very useful is to make yourself a realistic make yourself a realistic schedule. So be aware of what your life is at the time. Make sure that you actually, do give yourself time for having a life, for seeing your friends, seeing your children, getting some exercise, whatever else is important to you, as well as actually doing the day job.
Okay.
But usually it's a good idea to set yourself some kind of realistic deadline. So say you've got a particular exhibition that you're going to be attending, or you're giving a talk somewhere, then give yourself that as the deadline for writing the book and work back from that date to see how much you're going to have to write, allowing for all the other things that are going to happen, like typesetting, copy editing, proofreading, etc., before there is a book to put in the hands of your punters. So that's having a realistic schedule is crucial. The other thing is just to realize that it's never going to be perfect. You're just going to, at some point, you're just going to have to stop. And I think it was Renoir who said, genius is knowing when to stop. And basically, you stop when it's never going to be finished, but you just, at some point, you have to say, okay, that's as good as it's going to get.
I suppose that, is there an element there that okay, I don't want to stop now because I've got all these other ideas, that you then turn that into book number 2, maybe?
Exactly.
Yeah, very definitely, yeah. But
and in fact, you'll find that other ideas bubble up as you are writing, which can't be fitted into that particular book, but would do perfectly well for book number 2, or a blog, or an article, or some other form of writing, which you can then. The thing is to have a notebook or something beside you, so you can just make sure those ideas don't disappear.
And Sarah, you're absolutely right about the fact that you've got to just stop at some point, because it's never going to be finished, it's never going to be perfect. And I think that's what stops a lot of people from actually getting on and finishing a book or publishing it. I've met a lot of people who said, oh, I started 3 different books.
Yes.
But they never finish them because they think, oh, it's not perfect, it's not going to be. Well, no, it's never going to be perfect. So just, get to the point where you're happy with it and just move on to the next thing. So draw a line. Yeah.
Yes, no, absolutely. And that's one of the things as well, is that you don't edit yourself as you are writing. It's something in a way that we have to unlearn from our school days, because when we're told to, write really, really well, more or less from the moment we put pen to paper. But in fact, you need to allow yourself that room to make mistakes, to not actually get the right word, but it's almost the right words, but you don't want to stop to look around it. Don't revise and revise. If you revise and revise and revise, you'll never get off the first page.
Very true.
And then you'll feel very, very depressed.
Yes, I have written short articles that have gone down that path.
I think, we're not brought up to go, well, it'll do for now.
No.
It's got to be perfect.
But the do for now is the first. It's only ever a first draft until it's only ever a draft until it's printed, and then it's what it is. I think that's quite important to bear in mind. Then the next thing that you get to is the sense of overwhelming chaos. Which is a very, it's I'm just, really cheering you up here. You've got far too much stuff, So you've got more material than you can handle. You've got more ideas in your head than you can possibly control. You feel as if everything you've written is in the wrong order. And you're absolutely sure that there's a better way to say what you have already said. And that, I mean, it's very interesting. There are various patterns that seem to occur to anybody writing any book at any time. And one of them is that you get about, usually between sort of 2/3 and 3/4 of the way through, and you hit what I can only call is a kind of pain barrier. I mean, it's like running a marathon or something. You feel black, bleak, you can't stand what you've written, you can't believe that it's worth anything, and there's a real kind of slough of despond that you have to just realize that this is a universal experience and you have to work through it. And then you come out the other side and it's fine. But I've not had a single book coaching client or a single colleague who writes who hasn't had exactly that experience. Usually at about that time. Sometimes, people hit it a little bit earlier when they're about halfway through, but somewhere between halfway through and the end of the writing process, that first draft process, you're going to lose all faith in what you're doing.
I did it with my first book that I started ended up being put on hold for 2 years because I got completely despondent and thought I'm rubbish at this. The book that I published last year, Magnetic Marketing, I think I got about 2/3 of the way through, and then there was a wall. Though I had the structure, I just kept looking at the topic, thinking, I don't want to write about that. I don't know anything about it. I'm rubbish. I can't do anything. So I think one day I just sat down at the kitchen table, just flipping, write something. Once I got going, I thought, actually, I don't know what I'm talking about. So, yeah, but you'll get that.
Isn't there a place where you get to somewhere? Because I've written reports, in a business sense, and I've sort of had to cover various aspects of certain things, and I get to a couple of topics that actually I don't like. And I'm forced to write about them, and that's when it all goes wrong.
Yes,
so absolutely, and there are ways around that. I mean, if there are topics that have to be covered that you don't want to cover, then bring in a specialist.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't have, were I to write a business book, which I have written part of I have contributed to a business book, but I would never write any of the financial parts of it because it's not where my expertise lies. But I'm very happy to get somebody else to do it. But once you've got to this sort of sense of you work through that darkness and total lack of self-confidence, and then you find that you've got a kind of large, doughy lump of prose, and you have no idea what to do with it then. And so just to proceed with that baking metaphor for a bit, what you need to do is actually take the whole of the book and leave it to prove somewhere in a dark, warm place.
Yeah, absolutely right.
And don't touch it.
Maybe under some horse dung.
that would work. Yeah. Bury it in a stable or something. That would be fine. Yep.
But somewhere where you're not. Don't look at it. Don't fiddle with it. And try and leave it for as long as you can, at least a week, before you start editing it. And then when you read it through again, read it through as much as you can from the point of view of somebody who's coming to it fresh, as from the point of view of your ideal reader. So that you can then look at it and think, well, is that as clear as I can make it? Or do I need to actually expand that a little bit because I'm actually taking some knowledge for granted there? Or on the other hand, have I been excessively patronising at this point? And everybody's going to understand about that bit. Just generally go through that. So look at the fundamentally, any book is a conversation with somebody that you're having when you're not there. So you need to make sure that because they haven't got your expressive face and hands and body language to get their cues from, your tone of voice and inflections, then they need to get all their cues from what you've written. And so you need to make sure that you have all the expression that you want to get into what you're communicating is actually there in the written word. And then again, this is an absolutely universal feeling. There is this utter paralysis when you realize that your precious, your wonderful, your newborn book is going to have to actually go out in the world and people are going to have to read it.
Oh, that's very scary.
So you've got to come out of the literary closet one way or another. The best way to make this the safest and most productive process possible is to choose a support team and choose a range of people for their different qualities, so that one is somebody, a close friend who you know will tell you the truth, and who you know is on your side, so will want the book to be the best book it can be. Just a little bit of a warning there. Our friends and our family in particular have a tendency to like us as we have been, not necessarily as we're going to be. And there is, on occasions, a totally unconscious sabotage that goes on. So choose your friend with care, is all I would say.
Okay.
But then you need also an editor. You need somebody who knows the subject to advise you on, if there's something you've left out or something.
Sarah, can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
I don't know if you'll be covering this in this section, but I found this a lot with marketing content, so it's probably the same with books as well, where clients of mine have written something and they then give it to a husband, friend, close person they know to say, what do you think? And that person's gone, oh, I don't like that. But that person is not an ideal client. They're not somebody who is a potential client, audience member, reader for the book or whatever. So I'm always very cautious about who I show stuff to.
Absolutely.
I could show stuff to my husband and he'll say, well, I don't like that. Yeah, but I'm not aiming it at you, darling.
Yes. But I think what is quite useful is to have that as well as all the other feedback. And then, so that's why I suggest 4 or 5 people, because then if everybody is picking on the same passage, then there's probably something wrong with it. If it's only your nearest and dearest, it's probably absolutely fine.
Yes. If you want something nice said, show it to your mother, because she'll always say lovely things about it.
Yes, but then that doesn't necessarily. My poor dear father, who always used to praise everything I did, it made it very difficult to get any kind of calibration as to what was good and what wasn't.
So that's only for use when you need a little boost. Sure.
Exactly. The other thing that's very useful to do with all this, so your friend, your editor, your specialist, your target reader, is to give them some kind of structure for their feedback. So give them some sort of list of questions about, it's very open questions. Do you find this clear? Are there passages that you found difficult to understand? Anything of that nature that you would, was it interesting to read? So on and so on and so on, and give them permission to be frank. Because otherwise, this is very, very useful feedback, and that you can use that to do your final revisions. Then, and this doesn't actually come in really quite this order in real life, but we're going to assume it does for this exercise. There are 2 kinds of utter miseries that strike. One is powerlessness when faced with the traditional publishing world, because there are agents and there are publishers, and there seems absolutely no way of getting them to take any notice of you. And it's true, it's very, very difficult to get, it's even actually more difficult to get an agent than it is to get a publisher these days, paradoxically enough. But if you do want to go the traditional publishing route, and there are pluses to it, there are minuses to it, and it depends what you want your book to achieve. The pluses are that the publisher will take all the commercial risk and give you a little bit of money besides. the downside is that you have very little control over what is published, and you get far less than if you commit your own capital in self-publishing. So the return on investment is higher in self-publishing, but on the other hand, the security is higher in the traditional publishing model. If you are interested in going the traditional publishing model, then the best possible thing you can do is to buy a book called The Writers and Artists Yearbook, which comes out, as it suggests, every year. It's published by A&C Black, and it not only lists all the agents and publishers in the UK, but it tells you what they specialise in and whether they will accept unsolicited manuscripts, and so on and so on and so on. So that's the way to get in touch with them. They also, the publishing world generally has some roadblocks set up in it, which I'll cover off in the next bit, but it's important to know about them, and the Writers and Artists Yearbook will to some extent help you with that as well. So, we've now got to pitfall number 6. People are often overcome by fear. Fear of new technologies. And I think probably it would be fair to say that the publishing world has changed more rapidly in the last 5 years than at any time since Gutenberg invented movable type. I mean, it's just suddenly transformed into an entirely different game. And one of the ways in which it's transformed is that it's very, very easy for an individual to publish their own work directly. Very, very cost-effective as an e-book, really quite affordable as a self-published book, a hard copy book. Then another source of fear, of terror, is how much is it going to cost? And what I would say is take professional advice on what it is you want to achieve and what's the best way to achieve it. And certainly take professional advice before going to any of the online publishing businesses such as Lulu or Lightning Source or CreateSpace. Because fundamentally, all they are providing you with is a rather large photocopier.
That's a very good way of putting it, Sarah. I like that. You are absolutely right. It is just a glorified photocopier. Yeah. And
so they provide you with no kind of editing. They provide you with no kind of quality control. They provide you with no kind of guidance or input into the content of the book. And that actually is where the quality of the book lies. It's so, and also I would say you have no quality control over the actual physical product, and they tend to use very, very thin cover paper. They tend to use really quite rubbish interior paper, and the print design leaves pretty much everything to be desired. So that's just stating my position. And self-publishing, not using the online publishing route, is much more straightforward and much more cost-effective than most people know, because it's such a new thing that nobody's really, it's not become internalized, if you like. So very quickly on to pitfall number 7. You can feel utterly isolated and despondent when nobody stocks your book and nobody buys your book.
Oh dear.
Well, the two things. The stocking your book is a technical process that you need to understand how books get into booksellers and how books get onto Amazon. And fundamentally it means getting into one of the major distributors. There are two major distribution houses in the UK. One is called Gardner's, the other called Bertram's, and you need to have access to them through usually a third party. They don't just take small independent publishers. They can't. It would be, madness on their part. They need some sort of quality control, some kind of filtering system. If that's something you want to do, rather than just selling a book at the back of the room, then we can provide you with guidance on to how to achieve that. nobody buys your book. Nobody's going to buy your book if you don't know it's there. Mm-hmm. And this is why marketing your book needs to go on at the same time as you're writing it. So you're building up an appetite for it from the very start. And this is where I hand over to Chantal.
Oh, crumbs. Do I have to do some thinking and talking? That's not fair. That's not fair. I wasn't prepared for that at all. Yes, marketing your book. I think it does depend on what you want to do with the book. So if the book is, if you're looking to sell thousands and thousands of millions of copies and make an absolute fortune on it, then you're going to need to invest quite a bit in the marketing to be able to do it. Mm-hmm. If you're using the book to promote your business, like I do, then you don't have to do a huge amount. I use the first book I wrote. That for me is it's a glorified business card. And so I take it with me. I sold a copy at a networking meeting this morning that I was at where I gave a talk. So I don't actively promote the book other than putting it on the website and taking it along and showing it to people, because for me it's a really good sort of foot in the door. Mm-hmm. So Jane, with your Reiki for horses, remind me what your thinking is with that and how you want to be using the book.
Well, just really like you've just said, actually, because I think it's going to be more of a sales tool than anything else, because there are quite a lot of books out there all about horses and how you can heal them without healing with hands and that sort of thing. But there's not much out there on equine Reiki. So
interesting.
I think it's really, like I said, people will come to me and they'll say, "Oh, you use Reiki on horses, do you? And what's all that about?" And I have had very long conversations with people, and if I could say to them, well, actually, this is sort of the gist of it, but however, here's a book all about it. Yeah. And then, if you want me to come and teach you or help you or whatever, then it's an easier way of getting the word out there, I suppose.
Yes, absolutely. So the sort of things that I think you should be looking at is probably a website for the book. Mm-hmm. Or putting it onto a specific page on your website. Mm-hmm. Because it's such a specific subject, do some keyword research to find out what phrases are out there that people are searching for. Are they searching for equine Reiki or Reiki for horses or how to heal my horse using Reiki, that sort of thing, and look at what phrases you can get onto the site so that people who are searching for it can find the book. Yeah. The other thing to be thinking about, which isn't so much around book promotion, but it's about using the book as part of your marketing mix, is look at what next. So if somebody said, yes, I'm interested, you sell them the book, but then what? So have you got courses planned? Have you got material on the website that tells them more? Look at what packages you could provide. So it could be that somebody buys the book, then they want to come on a one-day open course where they can learn about it. Then they want to have a one-to-one with you. Mm-hmm. So, or they might want to do one or the other. So look at the packages that you can provide to effectively sell on once you've sold them the book.
Yeah.
Anything to add, Sarah?
No, absolutely, I agree. I think, but the important thing is to realise the desired outcome, absolutely. So that it sounds like to me that what you want your book to be, Jane, is actually a stepping stone. Mm-hmm. To talk in sort of marketing terms for a bit, it's a part of the product staircase. And it's probably fairly early on. It's building up a relationship with potential clients so that then they can turn them into actual, face-to-face clients. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you need to approach everything in that way so that you're giving away enough value for it to be really, really helpful, but not so much that they're not going to want to come to you to actually learn how to do it properly.
Yeah, and I think that's probably something I'm going to have to look at because, like I said to you before, Chantal, I've got lots of training materials that I use, and I need to be careful not to sort of put them all into the book.
Yeah.
And so you could pick up the book and just go and teach yourself. But I mean, Reiki doesn't work quite like that, but I think it's something I'd have to be a bit careful about.
That's an interesting thing, because I often get asked by people, aren't you afraid of giving away all your secrets? And my answer is no, absolutely not. I will give people as much advice and help as I possibly can. And that's what in my book I've crammed, 17 odd years of marketing planning into it. Because what will happen is there will be some people who will come along, they'll buy the book, they'll take it away, they'll use everything in it, they will never, ever, ever come back to you. That's fine. You've got to let them do that. There'll be others who will have a go at it and get stuck, and they'll come back to you. And there'll be some who look at the book, read it, and think, oh, I still don't know what the heck to do, but I know who to go to. Because you've built up your reputation, you've shared all that information with them in the first place. They'll come back to you and say, yes, please, can I have it? So it's kind of the abundance attitude.
The abundance model.
Yeah, if you spend all your time thinking, oh, there isn't enough work, I can't give this away, I've got to keep it all to myself, then that's what will happen. Whereas if you just give, I mean, I've built my business on giving stuff.
I suppose the only thing I would add to that is that what do you give to your clients, Chantal, and I mean, Jane, I would imagine as well, is actually huge amounts of expertise and experience, which what you don't want to do is to so bog your book down with information and explanation that it becomes a textbook.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what I was thinking, if I sort of turned my training materials into a book, that's what it would become. But I think, again, you're right. I've bought books from certain authors, and I've sort of skimmed through them and thought, oh, that's quite interesting, picked bits out that I like. And then it's like you say, I've looked for the next book that they've written and so on and so forth. So I've probably got a collection of books that actually haven't read all of them all the way through.
And that's fine. People will dip in and out. They'll take what they need, because this book for you it's not a novel. It's not an A to Z. It's not you've got to start at the beginning and work through. People will need to be able to dip in and out as and when they want to, take what they can.
Yes, absolutely. And then also I think the other thing is to think about the time lag that there is with, I mean, the old adage that there is with marketing, isn't there, Chantal, that it takes 7 messages or touches before people actually know what it is that you're saying, can hear you.
Yes.
So you need to, ideally, you don't want to start marketing the book until after it is published. You want to start marketing the book about at least 6 weeks, ideally 2 months before it's published.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. One of the reasons for doing that is it makes you get off your backside and actually do it.
I was going to say, that's a bit scary, actually.
It is. It's very scary. It's very scary, because where are we now? It's middle of September now, for anyone who's listening to this call in 3 years' time. And I started again on my second book earlier this summer, and I've said to people it will be available by the end of this year. And I've started promoting it, and I've actually got a pre-launch offer running that if anyone wants to buy it now, it costs them a bit less. And that does 2 things. It means I absolutely have to publish this book because people are buying it. Therefore, I have to produce it. But also, I've said it's going to be done by the end of the year, and that's my deadline to me. I've even got stuff pinned on the office wall saying book launch. The other reason, and this is kind of linked back to something Sarah said a while ago about the scary thing of sharing your book with people. When I was writing my first one, I started posting bits of it onto my blog. And I remember the first day I did that, and I hit publish. I was petrified, thinking, oh, God, what are people going to say? And nobody came back and said, well, that's a load of rubbish. People said, oh, yes, please, can I buy it? Start promoting it as soon as you start writing it, absolutely, and get the world on board. And it does help keep you going and give you something to work towards. So,
And the other thing that I would add to that, which is also, it does add to the pressure, but it also adds enormously to the joy, is quite early on in the process, get the cover designed.
Yeah,
right.
Because it makes it real to you, and it makes it real to your potential readers. Once people see a cover, they think, oh, that's a book.
Yeah, they start taking
where
it
would you
seriously.
go to get book covers designed then, Sarah?
There are any number of graphic designers. If you're interested in having, we can provide you with a list of people that
we'll send you some names of some brilliant people to talk to. Yeah, we've got some good contacts. So.
Because I know you can get them done online and for e-books, I guess, but...
You can, and again, it's kind of, you get what you pay for. So when I had mine done, I spent time talking to Jane, who did it, who was the typesetter, and she got to know me and the book, and she's produced something that I love, and it's me, and I'm really proud of it.
Yeah.
Whereas, you could go to Elance or something and give somebody a brief, but you may not get something that really resonates with you. I like working with people I know. I like being able to chat on the phone to somebody and say, actually, can you tweak this and that? So, and it wasn't massively expensive actually, so it was worth it.
No, it isn't massively expensive, and also it is. I think it's absolutely not something to skimp on.
No,
because it's your book's business suit, if you like.
Yeah. And that whole thing about not judging books by covers, well, actually, people do.
Well, it's how else can you judge them?
Exactly. They judge it by the front
cover. Particularly an e-book,
and then
it's the only thing you have to judge it by.
Well, that's very true. Yeah, very true. So,
what about sort of designs within the book?
Yes, you have to have a professional typesetter.
Lots of those. Yeah.
Because I'm guessing with my Reiki one, I'm going to have to sort of show them some photographs or something.
Yes, photographs or diagrams. Photographs of you doing it would be good. So every time you're out now working anywhere near a horse, get some photos. Get somebody to take some photos of you. Yeah. Even if they're only posed ones to show how you might be doing something. Yeah. Start planning that now.
Okay.
And if you are going to do that, then try and do it on a digital camera where you're going to get a high resolution image so that you can use it for print if you want to.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And if you need any help, Jane, you can come and do a photo shoot with me and my horse.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've got somebody I know who's got a horse.
And be star model. She can have some Reiki at the same time.
Absolutely. I think I need a day at your place then, Chantal.
That sounds good.
That sounds like a win-win.
Definitely, we'll do that. That would be great. Okay, fab. Sarah, have we covered everything in your 7 thingamies?
We have indeed.
Brilliant. Jane, do you have any other questions?
Not at the moment, but I probably will think of them when we've gone.
Well, we're both here. Just drop us an email.
That's it. If you do get in touch. And to anyone else listening to this who hasn't been able to join the call today, if you've got any questions about getting started on your book or getting halfway through or getting finished, then do get in touch. I'm going to turn off the recording button, but for those of you who are still here...
Before you do...
Don't go.
It might be a good idea to let know people... would it be a good idea just to say that they can get in touch by emailing you at...
Well, this recording, if you're listening to this recording later on, you'll have found it on my website. So
okay, and then for me it would be just getting in touch with me at sarah@thebookconsultancy.com. And that's all one word, the Book Consultancy.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you for that. Right, I'm going to turn off the recording now, and the rest of us can carry on chatting. So thank you for listening.